Thanks for listening to Creative Control. While I have you here, please consider supporting Youth Empowerment and Support Services, otherwise known as YES. Based in Edmonton, Alberta, YES provides immediate and low-barrier overnight and day shelter, temporary supportive housing, and individualized wraparound supports for young people aged 15 to 24. They work collaboratively within a network of care focused on the prevention of youth homelessness by providing youth with the necessary supports to stabilize their housing, improve their well-being, build life skills, connect with community, and avoid re-entry into homelessness. Learn more about how to donate or otherwise support YES by visiting yess.org.
This is Dmitry Samarov from Chicago, Illinois. And I love listening to Vish Khanna's Creative Control because whether he's talking to a favorite musician or actor of mine or someone I've never heard of, it's as if he's introducing me to a new friend. And the way things are going, couldn't you use a new friend? Listen now.
To make your flexible monthly donation to Creative Control, please visit patreon.com/creativecontrol today.
Julia Steiner is a talented songwriter, musician, and singer currently based in Chicago, Illinois. Originally from Louisville, Kentucky, Steiner has spent the past decade leading a project that now feels more like an actual band called Ratboys. Their fifth album is a dynamic and emotionally charged one called The Window, which was released by Top Shelf Records on August 25th, 2023. And so Julia and I connected ahead of that release for a good talk about things like living in Indiana and what life was like living in Kentucky. Her mother's Sheryl Crow and Beatles CDs and how a Beatles chord book taught her a lot about playing guitar. A classic Vish Bob Dylan detour. Our mutual deep love and appreciation for artists like Wilco, Chad Van Galen, and Sufjan Stevens. The origins of Ratboy and then Ratboys, working with producer Chris Walla on The Window, the album's eclectic sound, and its exploration of grief and grieving, upcoming Ratboys activity, other future plans, and much more. A part of the Entertainment One Network with the support of listeners like you who follow and subscribe to this donor-driven podcast and spread the word about it, and make flexible monthly donations at patreon.com/creativecontrol. This is the primary source of revenue for all the work I put into making this show, with additional support from Blackbird Music, a well-stocked record store with locations in Edmonton and Calgary, Alberta, and very friendly staff who will happily help you with whatever it is you need. You can even go to blackbird.ca and order records directly. Say you want the new Ratboys record, The Window. Like I say, go to blackbird.ca, type it in, see if it's in stock. Maybe they'll ship it right to your house. Choose your own adventure at blackbird.ca. That's how I feel. Plus, in-kind support from Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, Ontario, places I visited very recently on a trip to Ontario. And Granddad's Donuts in Hamilton, Ontario. Oh, I went to Granddad's Donuts, too. What great donuts we had. Thank you, Granddad's Donuts. What was I saying there? Oh, yeah, this is episode 796 of Creative Control, featuring the charming and brilliant Julia Steiner of Ratboys, with your host, me, Vish Khanna. Hi, Julia. How's it going?
Hi, Vish. I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for asking. It's nice to have you on the show and to meet this way. I mean, it would have been nice to meet in person. I didn't mean that sounded disparaging. It'd be nice to meet any old way, but this is nice. Would you agree? This is okay.
This is a particularly special way to meet, I think. It's a very modern way, for sure.
It's a modern way. Yes, it's very contemporary. Where in the world are you today?
So I am at home in Chicago in our basement where we practice and tinker and do other such things.
Oh, very nice. That's nice. How long have you been in Chicago exactly, would you say?
I moved here almost 10 years ago. So it'll be 9 years this fall. So it's been a minute now. It feels like home.
Yes. Well, geez, 10 years. I would hope so. That's great. Congratulations. Where did you move from, if I may ask?
Yeah, so I moved here right after I graduated college. So I moved from South Bend, Indiana, where I had been living for 4 years-ish for college. And then before that, I was living in Louisville, Kentucky, where I grew up. It's my hometown.
Oh, nice. I don't know I don't know. I have mixed feelings about Indiana generally. Did you like Indiana? I'm sorry. Was that insulting?
No, it's not. I feel extremely the same as you. I mean, I grew up right across the river from Indiana, and we always not to be mean, but we always kind of made fun of the Hoosiers or whatever. So then living there for 4 years, I mean, Mike Pence was our governor. There's a lot I could say.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a good time in college, and actually Dave and I met a lot of awesome musicians in South Bend. I listened to your episode with the Rutabaga, with Josh and Garth. So
oh yeah.
Yeah, it was a nice place to be a band and live for a while.
Oh yeah, there was some Indiana content on there. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so you know the Rutabaga folks?
Yeah, they were some of the first people outside of the Notre Dame bubble that we played shows with. And they're just really great and welcoming. And actually, Garth filled in on drums for us for a show once, very last minute. So we will always appreciate that for sure.
No, that's great. Yeah, I like Larry Bird. I can't remember what else is from Indiana, but I like Larry Bird. He seems good. And then Louisville. I like Louisville. I've been there once, twice. I can't remember exactly. Did you like growing up in Louisville?
I mean, yeah, it's a nice place. Very green. It's I'm trying to think. It felt like a pretty, normal place. I was lucky. I lived on a street that had lots of kids on it growing up. So just did your typical American pre-internet activities, going digging holes, and I'm trying to think making home movie, just silly things. It was a nice place. I don't think I'd ever want to live there again. It's a little insular, a little small, even for being a fairly big city, but
yeah,
it's nice to visit. Definitely.
I know a couple people there, I suppose, just from doing the show and being a fan. You're Will Oldham, I think Nathan Salzberg might be around there. Some musician types, I suppose. Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of both of those guys, particularly.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So yeah, it has a rich history there. Did you have a musical upbringing per se?
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, I mean, my mom is really musical. She did a lot of musical theater. That was her thing in college. She was a theater major and did all sorts of. She was a vocalist mainly. Did all sorts of singing gigs over the years. But yeah, I mean, my parents put me in piano lessons and stuff as a kid, and I taught myself how to play guitar with her guitar, and it was, I don't know, we were always listening to music together, she and I, and so it was something I enjoyed from a young age, I think. But I never fully saw myself. Yeah, I never had a dream of becoming a career musician or anything. It just kind of happened by accident that we are still doing this. But yeah, I don't know. I always loved music growing up, for sure.
Nice, that's great. So you mentioned you bond over music with your mother in particular, I believe is what you were saying there. Were there particular artists that you bonded over, or songs, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, the two big ones that stick out in my memory are CDs that she had in her car when we would drive to school. The first one is that that Beatles #1 album, the compilation of all their #1 hits, red CD with the big yellow one on the front.
That's the only thing by the Beatles that I don't think I own, because I'm do I need? Is there?
Really?
Did they put an extra song on there or something? I don't think they did.
No, it's just really interesting. And obviously, at the time when I was first listening to that, I didn't know the Beatles very well at all, so I didn't appreciate the context. But it's so interesting to hear just their #1 hits in order like that collection of songs, obviously it's not something they curated. It's, we the people curated it, I guess.
Sure,
But
yeah.
it's just a really nice collection of songs, and the way it flows in chronological order is actually like really a great album sequence by accident. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of worth owning. I don't own it, but
No, I didn't.
Yeah, growing up, I loved listening to
I didn't mean to sound snobby. I just was like, I don't think I need this release because I have everything they put out on
Right.
every different
Well,
format.
yeah.
I've had everything my whole life. So what am I going to learn from this? But
So you're a big Beatles fan?
I am. Yeah, sure. I
Nice.
have. They're my first music love.
Me too.
I've told this story when I was 5 or 6 years old. My cousin, my older cousin, was into music and had at the time, it was the early '80s, so got me into the Police and U2 and I don't know. He had Cult, right? Love and Rockets, like just weird, whatever he was into at the time. And everything was vaguely like gothy, but big rock, I guess. And but anyway, he played me the Beatles, and coincidentally, a compilation. It was called Rock and Roll Music Volume 1. And I was like, what is this? Because I think it starts with them like Twist and Shout or something, and John Lennon's voice is so ragged.
Oh, yeah.
So it impacted me in a big way. Maybe it doesn't start with it. Maybe one side starts with it. I don't remember. Don't fact check me on this, everyone. I don't remember. But I just remember hearing those songs and falling in love. But no, then I'm not also a fan of I've talked about this before too, so forgive me. I'm not usually a fan of compilations or greatest hits things because I think the album context is important. However, the Beatles are a good compilation band because the songs are all pretty great. Like there's nary a stinker. Like if anyone deserves a greatest hits thing, is what I'm saying. It's probably the Beatles. So I am probably now, because of you, going to try to obtain. It's called One, I believe, right? The Beatles One. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's all their number one hits. And I don't know. I am right there with you. Like, who is sequencing the greatest hits album? You know what I mean? Like, who is in charge? It's probably not the artist. So, like, I do like this one. The last thing I'll say, sorry, I know this is a detour, but freaking, it's like, it's within a boundary. Like, it's literally like each number one hit in chronological order. So it's like, structured in a way that no one could argue. You know what I mean? It's just, this is like the history. These are the facts. This is like the career arc of this band. And so, and like I said, the sequence is actually quite nice given the fact that it's like within those constraints. So anyway, that record was like big for me growing up. And I was the same as you. Like the Beatles were the first band I remember loving. And then when I first started playing guitar, I don't know who gave it to me or how I ended up with this book, but there's this book called The Complete Beatles Chord Songbook.
Yep.
And I've actually met a few people who also owned this book, and it's just absolutely how I learned how to play guitar. Like my mom showed me a few chords. I had a friend who showed me a few chords, and YouTube was around, so I used that a little bit, like the early days of YouTube. But that book specifically was like it for me. And I still recommend, like, if you're trying to learn how to play guitar, just find songs that you love and learn how to play them, because then you will want to learn, you know.
Well, that Beatles chord book, I'm still a rudimentary guitar player. I have been ever since I picked them up. I'm a drummer primarily, but the guitar mystifies me a little bit, but I'm getting better at it and I'm figuring it out. But that Beatles chord book is one of those things where, as you're trying to learn a song, I'm learning chords I didn't know existed. Did you find that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've learned so many chords from learning those songs, and chords that I have like stolen and used in our songs.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, that's the beautiful thing, because I remember Paul McCartney saying in some interview that like he will never forget the day this random guy in his school showed him how to play a B7 chord, and it like literally changed his life. And I can really relate to that. Like, I have such vivid memories of like unlocking new like chord shapes using this book. So I still use it.
I'm not smart enough to know how this works, but like in the last few years, I decided to learn the George Harrison song Something. And if I'm playing it correctly, the first three chords are all some variation of a C chord, And that was weird. Oh, you just lift this finger and it's a different chord. And then you add a finger and then it's a different chord, but you're still sort of always playing.
Oh my god!
Isn't that weird?
Yeesh, you're speaking my language. This is like one of my favorite things about guitar. If you had one finger, God help you, but hopefully not.
Yes.
But if you had one finger on your left hand, you could still make the most interesting chords. Like literally changing one string, or even what I've been doing lately, which is psycho, is like just tuning one string differently and then playing the same chords I know and figuring out how to make it sound cool is like one of my favorite tricks, because you don't need to change much for it to sound completely different.
Yeah.
Which is so cool.
It's magical. I do think it's magical, and it's revelatory when you start to get into that stuff. So thanks for that little trip down memory lane there. But you mentioned the Beatles. Was there anything else? I feel like you were going to say something else, some other record that your mom had maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the other big one that I will never forget listening to with her in the car was the Globe Sessions by Sheryl Crow, which was her third record, her masterpiece, in my opinion. Maybe I'm biased because it was the first one that I was like obsessed with. But yeah, big Sheryl Crow heads in the car listening on the way to school. Really earnest, honest, heartbreaking lyrics and vocal delivery on that record. Cheryl is clearly, going through some stuff. But I just loved it. Like everything about it. And to hear a woman like just front and center, like the star of the show on a record that's not even that in your face. I think it really lit a fire in me and I didn't even really realize it at the time, but I was really into that.
Now, I don't know Sheryl Crow's catalog very well, but that record...
That's okay.
No, I thank you. I'm sorry, I just don't.
You're forgiven.
I appreciate that. I'm sorry. What I wanted to say, though, is that record, though, the Globe Sessions, I believe it came out around 1998 or so. And I know this because I believe she got to cover... Well, sorry, it hadn't even come out yet. Bob Dylan gave her the song Mississippi that he had been working on for the Time Out of Mind sessions in 97. And he and his producer, Daniel Anwell, was on this show earlier this year to talk about this a little bit. He produced that Time Out of Mind album and didn't like Mississippi, even though Dylan was like, it's done. Like and now we all think of it as a classic. And so the lore is he and Lanwell got in a fight about it. And so it didn't end up on the album, Time Out of Mind. It subsequently ended up on Dylan's 2001 album, Love and Theft. But am I correct? Are you familiar with a song called Mississippi?
I think so. I am not totally 100% sure, and I will say I know nothing about Bob Dylan, so I don't know any of the lore, but I don't really know so I say I am obsessed with this record. The first 8 tracks are the album to me. Like I would always stop and go back because there's a weird Nirvana cover at the end that I can't really vouch for, like a Sweet Child of Mine cover.
Yeah, she does a Guns N' Roses
or not Nirvana.
song.
I'm sorry, Guns N' Roses. What am I saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, what is she doing? I don't know. So there's parts. The back half kind of loses me a little bit. I gotta be honest. So I'm not totally sure about that song in particular.
Okay,
but it's a
classic song. I think if the chorus is only one thing I did wrong, stayed in Mississippi a day too long, which is a field.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, well, it's an old field recording. I think that Alan Lomax captured from some folks, some prisoners were singing, and he captured the field recording, and Dylan grabbed that chorus. Only one thing I did wrong. Stayed in Mississippi a day too long. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to talk about something you don't know. But that record, I believe. So that's my main Sheryl Crow connection. Anyway, sorry, I just inserted.
Well, I'll have to go back and listen. I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Okay, so you get into stuff with your mother there. These are the Beatles, I think, maybe Sheryl Crow, kind of eclectic artists in terms of genre signifiers. Like they can go in several different directions: folk, country, rock, hard rock, sometimes pop.
Yeah,
that comes through for me in your work in Ratboys. I can't listen to an album without feeling like I'm on a bit of a roller coaster ride. of styles and sounds. That eclecticism appeals to you as an artist. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I love all different sorts of music, and I'm not alone in that. Like, I think all of us in the band really have like diverse music taste, and I feel like everyone does. Like, a lot of musicians do, but like we don't really stop ourselves from like writing, like working on a song just because it might sound different than the other songs we've been working on, you know? Like, I don't know. I really like albums where I'm like not totally sure what's going to happen next, or like, especially if it's like cohesive, like there's a sonic through line, but there's something about it that kind of shakes you up or surprises you.
Yeah.
I'm into records like that. Yeah. And so I don't know, like, it's not something we try to do or like talk about or we're conscious of. It's just like to like just write whatever songs we want to write.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. No, you've got freedom there. I can appreciate that. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Totally. And when people are like, what kind of band are you in? I'm like, I'm always like, well, I play guitar. Like, it's like a guitar band. But yeah, I don't really know what to say. It's like, we don't really think about it that way, I guess.
It's fair. And in this day and age, I think it would make sense to most music fans that a band might go all over the place, for sure. Do you ever find, though, when you incorporate so much difference on a record that, like, I appreciate you're like, I don't know, it's music. I don't. People ask what it is, because sometimes when I think about even my show, this podcast, sometimes when I lament the fact that maybe it's not as popular as some other ones, you know, people like my wife will be like, well, it's kind of hard to describe your show. You talk to so many different kinds of people, primarily musicians, but comedians, authors. Like, sometimes people just like a thing to be one thing. As a band, do you ever experience like people are like, we don't know how to book you. We don't know how to, like, where do you fit? Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think not directly. No one's ever told us that, or like we haven't been, I don't know if we've like really noticed that, but I do often wonder, like, and I shouldn't say often. I've wondered in the past, like, you know, if we're maybe, it feels sometimes like maybe we're a little bit too weird for like the average mainstream like pop rock music listener, but then we might be a little bit too like normal for like the really artsy kind of avant-garde indie listener. Like, we are kind of straddling those two worlds a little bit, maybe. I don't know. Like, but then like to your point though, like if someone were to say that about your podcast, I feel like I would just say it's a talk podcast. He's like talking to people. You know what I mean? And for our band, it's like we're a guitar band. We just play our guitars. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think it has to be so complicated. Although I do love thinking about genre, and like it's fun to organize your brain that way. So I get the like need to do that as well.
Well, for example, there are times where Ratboys can sound like a beautiful, almost traditional country band, and your voice is really well suited for that tradition. And yet the album opens with ostensibly a noise. I don't mean to put too fine a point on it. It's called "Making Noise for the Ones You Love," I believe, and it's a noisy punk oriented, and that's all on the same record. Again, I don't mean to sound like I'm 100 years old. I get it. The internet has changed the way, and particularly the internet, I think, has changed the way people listen and accept music. But I think also I don't know if you'll get to that point where, like, what if we just make a record this one way and see how that feels? You know, express ourselves in that one genre signifier and see if that, I don't know. Again, who am I to say? But do you ever have thoughts like that? Maybe we'll just make like a punk record. Maybe we'll just make a country record and just see what happens. Do you ever think that?
Yeah, no, I've definitely thought of that. Like, I think it'd be fun to try someday.
Yeah.
I don't know if or when it will ever happen, but yeah, maybe it is a Beatles thing. Honestly, you saying that, because like they did that, and I really think that like that is something that I've never fully understood why But I think that is one of the main reasons that I love their discography and like love their records, is because they do that on their records. Like they have all sorts of different energies and like presentations and weird noise mixed with like beautiful, like, I'm trying to think.
Well,
Like,
I'll tell you. I'll say a thing right now. Tell me if this resonates with you. My two. If I can't really pick favorite records by my favorite bands. I think it's reductive, and I like the journey and all that stuff. But I will say, if I had to, my go-tos for the Beatles are Revolver and the White Album. And my favorite album by The Clash is a triple record called Sandinista, which is all over the place. And the White Album, all over the place. So something about me for a long time has enjoyed that dynamism, that variety of ideas and sounds living in the same creative batch, creative explosion. I get the impression you are a similar type of person.
That's a great way to put it. It is really dynamic. And like my favorite, I'm not sure if you're a Wilco fan. Do you listen to Wilco?
Very much so. I've seen Wilco lots and lots of times. I don't know, probably, I would guess 15 times. I have all their albums. You know, Jeff Tweedy was on the show. Jeff and I have talked a few times, but he's on the show for a very unexpectedly long, for both of us, conversation. I think it was
amazing.
It was last year. He's very sweet. He's very funny. And yes, I am sorry. Yes, the answer to your question, yes.
Hell yeah. Okay. I'm a huge fan as well. And yeah, my favorite record of theirs is A Ghost is Born. And that is one of the most like extreme records as far as like extreme physical noisy guitar solos, and then like extremely intimate acoustic pretty like you know, ambient music. I love records that have a lot to give you, like a lot to share, and it feels more complete as like this is like the brain that this came out of. It feels like a whole person kind of sharing themselves with you, and it's not like I demand that from people, because it's a very kind of like maybe exhausting, like vulnerable thing to do, to like share so many different parts of yourself with people. But and I'm not saying that that's what I'm doing necessarily, but like, you know, I find that I really appreciate that when I listen to records.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because there are times on this new album where every once in a while I'm like, oh, this kind of reminds me of Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. I actually have thought that listening to.
Damn.
Yeah. Does that? I know you mentioned A Ghost is Born.
Thank you.
But that album too. I don't know if you got. Is there a xylophone or something? I feel like there's something in the mix where I'm like, oh, this kind of reminds me of like a Wilco melody. Anyway, I didn't mean to get that specific. It sounds like that's in there somewhere, in your subconscious at least. Wilco.
Oh, I mean, I'm just a huge fan. And I mean, living in Chicago now, it just feels like that band is such a, I don't know, it's like in the wind or something, not to be cheesy, but I am grateful that band exists, and grateful to live in the same city where they create music. Are
they aware of you? Have you interacted with the Tweedies in any way?
A little bit, yeah. I'm friends with Spencer,
nice.
Jeff's son.
Yeah. Spencer also been on the show.
He's
nice.
Such a great guy. He's a very kind person, and I like right before the COVID lockdown hit, I got to play in his band. I like played guitar in his like solo band or whatever.
Oh, nice.
At a show, and so we practiced at his house, and so I met Jeff very briefly, like while we were practicing, and he like came down. He's like, "Where are the Law and Order DVDs or something?" You know, like very mundane. And I was like, "Oh my god, wow, it's Jeff Tweedy." But it was cool, and I don't know. I'm just a big old fan. I just love all their records. He truly do.
He's very funny. Jeff we were talking about on the last time he was on in that long chat. We were kind of talking about recognition for our work as musicians, or in my case, as the host of the show. And, you know, I was going on about how it's nice when I said something like, it's one of my great markers of success is if a guest will share our conversation after it's happened. Because that to me tells me they were not only do they have a fond memory of it, maybe they engaged with it a little bit and they're fine with it and they want to share it. Because some most of the time, 90% of the time that happens, and when in that 10% or whatever, when it doesn't, I feel like maybe they didn't like it, or maybe they don't care. I don't know. Anyway, Jeff's hearing me say this, and he was relating to it in terms of the reception to Wilco sometimes, and how certain records of theirs, I think he felt would occasionally get ignored or, disparaged with not a deep listen. So we were on about it, and when I said the thing about the podcast, he said, "I feel like I'm going to owe you a present after this. Do I owe you something like a fruit basket?" And I said, no, it's fine. Anyway, cut to 3 weeks later. Guess what's in my mailbox? A fruit
amazing.
basket from Jeff Tweedy, and it was covered in or it was like chocolate covered fruit, and it was a note.
What a dream!
What a lovely, funny guy that he remembered that. And I texted him like, "Thanks for the fruit basket." It's like, no problem. I hope it's I can't remember what he said, but it was just very nice. And so I just want to say I want to tell a little anecdote because we're having a little Tweedy lovin'. I love those people.
Love some Tweedy lovin'. That rocks.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back again. We're going to hop all around on this call, and I'm sorry, Julia, but such is c'est la vie, as I like to say. So you're playing guitar and you're learning stuff with your mother there, and your mother's guitar, I should say. When does that switch go off that this is something you could pursue? You could play live. You could write songs. Was it high school? When was it exactly?
Yeah, probably sometime in high school. I'm trying to think. I played a song at my high school talent show, and that seemed to go okay. My teacher was like, "You need to open your eyes," because I guess I was closing my eyes the whole time. I was like, "Okay," it was some good, constructive criticism, and I was writing songs alone and really getting into music kind of on my own as well, or I should say, not with my mom, with my friends. And it was right when the iTunes store was becoming a thing. So it was really easy to, I would go to my family's desktop computer and just look on iTunes for hours and usually find interesting album art and listen to music that way, the little 30-second clips or whatever. And then would go to the record store and buy CDs if, with my little, my, what is it, summer job money. I was a bus boy.
Oh, nice.
But anyway, so I was kind of slowly coming out of my shell a little bit, or blooming with music discovery. But I was definitely playing alone. I didn't have any friends at the time who also played an instrument, and so I would write songs by myself and show them to my friends, and they liked them and wanted me to keep going. But I didn't really think of it beyond that at all. I played a couple coffee shops and stuff, but it was truly just for I liked performing, but it wasn't for any sort of if I do this, then maybe next time I could do a bigger one. It wasn't like that at all. It was just for fun.
Yeah.
So eventually, it took me a long time to really a light bulb moment where I was like, oh, this could be something I do. I could try to make a living doing this someday. That didn't happen until 2017, years later, 10 years later. And that was really when we were doing a lot of DIY touring across the country. And in 2017, through friends of friends, we got hooked up with these booking agents in New York, and they came out to see us and liked our show and wanted to start helping us book shows. And I was like, oh my God, you're in the industry and you want to help us. So that was the first time that it kind of switched for me. I was like, oh, this is something that people want to invest their time in. We could try to make this more than it is. So it was exciting time for sure.
Pretty organic. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you can think on some of these early coffeehouse performances, I'm going to guess you did some covers, but and if you want, we can talk about that. But I'm also just curious about your first forays into your own songwriting. What were you kind of writing about? Because I sense in your current writing a lot of interpersonal relationship stuff and just pondering the world. And I wonder if those sort of aesthetic choices were present even when you first started. So yeah, can you take us back? If you were covering people, who were you covering? And if you were writing songs, what kinds of things were you kind of writing about?
Yeah. I know when I first started playing those shows, some of which were in nursing homes too, which is kind of funny. We would go and play for the elderly people. It was we had to do service hours in high school. I went to a Catholic school, and so part of that was if you go play a concert for the elderly people, then that counts as like community service or whatever. So I was like, okay, that's easy enough.
Oh, cool. Nice.
And it was really fun. So I would do that with my friends, and I played like a couple Avett Brothers songs, and like I covered a Fleet Foxes song and like a Sufjan Stevens song, and Chad Van Galen, who's my favorite songwriter like ever. Love him.
Really? That's lovely. That's Chad's. He's just down the road from me. We're pals. He's in Calgary. I'm in Edmonton. That's awesome.
I forgot you're in Canada.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. How have we not talked about this yet? Okay.
I don't know. Sorry. I didn't know. I don't know what people know and don't know. I didn't think it was germane.
I knew
Sorry.
you were Canadian. Okay. Yes. Cool. Yeah. Chad is like one of my, I mean, we've never met, but I am a huge, huge fan of his songwriting. And so, yeah, I remember I played Willow Tree, which is a song of his about death at the nursing home. And I think the old people were deeply confused. So sorry to them. But yeah, I don't know. I just loved trying to learn songs, and I didn't know a lot of chords, and you know, my knowledge on the guitar is still pretty limited. And so I was just kind of writing songs with the chords I knew. And the very first ones were about like silly things going on in my friend group, like almost joke songs to make my friends laugh. And then eventually, as I started listening to more Sufjan, like as I don't know, like I was able to kind of write some songs that I felt more like personal, and they felt more serious, for lack of a better word. And so they were definitely mostly focused on like people in my life and things I was learning in school, and just like very kind of a reflection of where I was when I was 16. But a few of them ended up on our first EP, like the first thing that we put out in 2011, which we then re-recorded in 2021. But yeah, a few of those first 5 songs, like 3 of them were ones that I wrote in high school. So
nice. That's good.
Yeah.
So you found your voice early. You know, between Wilco and Suf, you've got Illinois on the brain. You seem drawn to Illinois. I never even, that just occurs to me. Sorry, I'm making a little joke, but
I mean, you're not wrong. And I don't know how maybe it was fate that I ended up here, but yeah. I mean, Sufjan is, I know I just said Chad is like my favorite songwriter. Sufjan is like my favorite, God, what would the word even be? Just like artist? I don't know. Like it's not even just his writing, but like the way he presents it and the like production choices he makes. I'm just such a fan. Like he can do no wrong in my opinion.
He's a good guy. I had the good fortune of encountering him in 2000. I was road managing my friends in Royal City, and a band. And
that's early. That's really early.
Yeah, he gave me copies. We played at his loft apartment, and he played, and my friends played, and we became friendly. And then a year or two later, mutual colleagues brought a folk band that I led down to Brooklyn to play a tribute to the folk artist Howard Finster, and Sufjan played. He was just getting the theatrical stuff going on. Danielson family also played, and we played, and it's really fun. But yes, Suf said, "Hey, I've got a new album coming out. He gave me a finished copy of Illinois, and then I said, "Oh, I'll write it up. I'll write it up in Canada." So I wrote a review of it, and I believe, I might be wrong on this, but I think he told me I was the first one to ever review it. And he wrote me a long, I lost it because my Hotmail account got they deleted everything because I forgot to log in.
No.
Anyway, he wrote me a long review of my review.
Oh my God.
He wrote like
did he like it?
He did like it. He said he clipped it. I sent him a hard copy of it at the time, and he put it on his fridge, he said, but he wrote me a review that was nice. It was nice, but it was a review of my review, and it was really funny. And he's an
oh my gosh, you should have written him a review of his review of your review. You guys could have kept this going for years.
I was a little overwhelmed because he hadn't it hadn't like you know what?
That is so cool.
As I think of it now, I'm wrong. It wasn't Illinois. It was Michigan. Sorry, I forgot that.
I was going to say that Illinois was later.
Yeah, I forgot. He got too deep. So it was Michigan. He gave me a copy of Michigan, and that's what I reviewed. And then by the time Illinois came out, he was I guess that's when he became a bigger deal, right? I'm foggy on this now. So we haven't talked in a long time, but we used to do interviews all the time, and I post some of them up on my Patreon. Anyway, good Lord, why am I talking about all this?
Amazing. Well, no, I love it.
Yeah.
Sufjan is such kind of like a mythical figure to me. So to hear any sort of like humanizing tale of Sufjan is very cool.
He's fun.
I mean,
he's a funny.
Did you like Age of Odds? That's like my favorite record of all time. But anyway.
I did. I got to see him do that at Massey Hall, that tour, and I did like it. Yeah,
I'm so jealous.
And I also like the Brooklyn. What was the thing? The BQE one.
The BQE.
Yeah, very nice.
God.
He gave me some. I interviewed for that one. I interviewed him on his tour bus, and he gave me the elaborate. I'm glancing to my left here. I have it here somewhere. He gave me the very elaborate vinyl. And there's a bunch of stuff in it, and it's very nice. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Again, I wanted to relate to you, and so I mentioned some folks. I didn't mean to drop names. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. I mean, hey, we could make this a Sufjan podcast, but no,
we could. I think we just did. I'm sorry. Anyway, my point is this. My point was going to be, okay, thank you for that background. We're a little all over the place. It's my fault. Let's talk about the inception of Ratboys. From this era that we're talking about, because you talked about how as you're a young person writing songs, some of those songs end up on Ratboys releases, I think is what you said. Sorry, I'm going back a ways. How did the Ratboys as a band or a project, if you will, because I think we're going to get to it. I think at this point, it feels
we're almost there.
We're almost there. It feels feels like a real band these days. But how did it start, and what was its form in the early part of Ratboys?
So yeah, I started writing songs by myself, and I called myself Ratboy, which was like kind of my high school nickname. So like right after I graduated from high school, I got a laptop because I was going to go to college, and it was like, looking back, this brick of a laptop, but it had, like the earliest version of GarageBand on it. And so I was able to record myself for the first time and made a little, 10-song demo CD. And that was like kind of my first Ratboy thing. And then I go to college. Immediately, like first weekend, meet Dave, who was from the Chicago suburbs. We had like interacted on on Facebook that summer. I like came across his profile and was intrigued, and so we became Facebook friends. But then we became real friends in real life, and immediately kind of bonded over the bands we liked, and the fact that I played guitar, and there just aren't a ton of people at Notre Dame who are into that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. And there are people, but there just aren't a ton. And so we immediately kind of like became fast friends just because we had so much in common in that way. And so I showed him some of the songs I had written, the ones I had recorded to that CD, and we picked a few, and then I was writing a few more, and we just kind of started messing around with these songs. And then eventually over spring break that year, 2011, he took the recordings home with him that I had been working on and added stuff, and then came back at the end of the week, and I was like, oh my God, this is literally the coolest thing. Like, I could have never done this on my own. And so then we just put it up on Bandcamp, and just to show our friends. And we were Ratboy, the two of us. And so we just started playing shows that summer in like our friends' backyards and stuff. We were not attempting to be legitimate whatsoever. We just like we were excited to like be with our friends and like, play on bills with them and just, share music together. It was like very wholesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It sounds wholesome. Sorry. How does one earn the high school nickname Ratboy?
Oh my God. Yeah. I don't know. Like the way I remember it is that my friends and I were like at lunch sitting around a big round table, and we were just giving each other like disgusting nicknames, like very crude nicknames. And my friend Liz just like narrowed her eyes and looked at me and was like, "You're just a little rat boy." And she like called me that. And we came up with like, there was this whole inside joke we like came up with this little musical. It was like just kind of like a silly joke with my girlfriends. And so it stuck. It was the least disgusting nickname, but the only one that stuck around.
As a professional journalist, I must ask, do you recall what some of the more disgusting nicknames were?
Oh, yeah, I do. I don't think they are fit to share.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
High schoolers being high
Truly.
schoolers. Leave it at that. Okay.
Yes.
I think I understand.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So the narrative around... So Ratboys has been going then for how long exactly? As a band,
I mean, technically like 13 years.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we didn't start touring until 2015, and that was all DIY stuff. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
that counts. Hey, are you munching on raspberries? I can hear it. Are you?
I'm sorry.
No,
yeah, I
it's
was
fine.
for that answer.
It's fine.
I ate a raspberry.
I want some. We have some in the fridge. I'm going to have some
sorry.
after this. We're upselling
I'm
raspberries.
tempting you.
Everyone should eat raspberries. Listen to Wilco and Sufjan Stevens. We're just upselling. Oh,
Yes.
the Beatles. You should check out the Beatles. They're good. Anyway, my point
Yeah.
was going to be so the narrative around this particular album. The window is that this is the most collaborative version yet of Ratboys. Is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay.
I think so.
And what that means is you did still probably come up with the seeds of the songs, but you brought them into a room with everyone and worked out everything together. Is that about right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, like, I don't know how interesting this stuff is to people, but, like, in the past, what I would do is, like, exactly what you said, write the seeds of the songs alone. And then I would show that to Dave. And if Dave gave me a thumbs up, then I would keep working on it. And eventually, in the past, Dave and I would take the finished seeds and go demo them together. And then we would try to find friends to help us record them when it went time, when it was time to like actually record them. And so we were usually like teaching the kind of rudimentary drum and bass parts that we had written. Dave is a very talented bass player. So in the past, he would write the bass parts and then teach them to someone else or play them himself. And then we'd have different people playing live. Anyway, so this time was the first time that I brought the seeds of the songs to everyone, like to the group, which now includes Sean and Marcus, and we all like wrote our parts together in the room at the same time.
Nice.
We've never done it that way before, and it was very exciting. Like, it's like, I don't know, as soon as I started playing with Dave, I was like, how cool would it be to have a band? And it took us a long time to like find a consistent band. And we had that with Printer's Devil, but it was still the kind of thing where Dave and I like wrote all the parts and demoed it alone and then brought it to Sean and Marcus. But this time, Sean and Marcus wrote all their parts. And yeah, it was just a very exciting new feeling for us. So
I assume this is, among other positive aspects of this, it's going to probably make it easier for touring. Everyone's going to know their parts. They came up with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was way more efficient, like way more time effective. I don't know.
No, it's good.
And honestly, that was like a revelation in the studio too. Like with Printer's Devil, our last record, we recorded live for the first time, and that was a revelation to be like, oh my god, we can all record our parts all at the same time.
Yeah.
Like that makes it go so fast. And so we did that again for this one, and it was awesome. We tracked the whole record in like 5 days, and then we had like 19 days to do all the overdubs. So it was awesome.
It sounds great. Like I say, for those who are going to dig into it, it's when I say it's a little all over the place, I mean it in a good way. You're going to get different sounds, and it keeps you thinking, keeps you guessing what's going to happen next on this record. Every time I listen to it, I'm like, oh yeah, now we're going in this direction. I like that. The title track, The Window, stands out for me, not only because it's the title track, but now that we've had this conversation, I can't help but think of those the times you spent playing to folks in senior homes. There's some sadness pervading that song, and I'm going to ask you to talk about that if you can in a moment. That song and maybe where that came from. But also wonder. I also, as you're pondering the song and what to say about it. Do you feel like was that a linchpin for the record? Because the record is, like I say, in a good way, it contains multitudes of moods and ideas. But is that a song that you view as central, given that it's the title track? Is it in terms of mood and tone of the album overall?
I think so, yeah. I mean, to be honest, we weren't always planning to name the album after that song. The original working title was the name of track 1, Making Noise for the Ones You Love. And The Window as a song, I will say, like, when I wrote that song, I was like immediately very proud of it. I felt like it was a pretty clear, concise, like distilled song compared to some of the other ones that I've written. Like, it just felt very kind of true to what I was trying to do, and I don't always feel that way. I don't usually feel that, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it felt like an accomplishment. Like, I was proud of it. And so I always knew that that song meant a lot to me personally, and it was one that took us a minute to figure out as a band, because we tried it in so many different styles. Like, when we were up in Michigan demoing in 2020, and we just didn't know how to present it. We like tried it in like a slow country style, and like we tried it super fast, and like eventually we just landed on this kind of like straight ahead pop rock, like radio rock thing, and we were like, this is cool. Like, this like feels, we were trying to sound like the Goo Goo Dolls or something. And so
Right.
like Counting Crows, and I love those bands. And so yeah, it felt really solid. And so in the track list, it is like the centerpiece of the record. It's, you know, track 6 of 11. It's like right in the middle. And so eventually in the studio, Chris suggested, I think he felt the song was special, and he suggested, why don't you guys name the album after it? And we were like, okay, yeah, maybe. And then the last thing I'll say is we like went on tour right after we got out of the studio, and we would play it every night because we had been just recording it, and people really liked it. Like, after the shows, people would kind of come up and talk to me about it, and so I was like, you know, I think we should name the album after this song. So I'm glad we did.
Did you contextualize the story behind the song live?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I did. Well, I didn't really go into details. I would just say, you know, the song's about like saying goodbye through the window, and sometimes I would say it's, you know, dedicated to my grandparents or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, the song has like a very specific, it's like rooted in a very personal story, but it's basically about my grandpa visiting my grandmother when she was, you know, close to dying. And because of COVID, he wasn't allowed to go in to the nursing home where she was living. She didn't have COVID. It was like a weird thing where no one was allowed inside.
Yeah.
And so they were afraid that, you know, people outside would give her COVID, whatever. God, it's such a weird time to think back on. But anyway, so he was kind of forced to find a workaround and ended up standing outside her first floor window and like talking to her and kind of having this final goodbye through the window.
Yeah.
And she passed away the next day, like the next morning. And yeah, my mom was there and witnessed this and called me to break the news about my grandmother, but also just kind of couldn't help herself and like told me this whole story and like some of the actual things that he had said. And it was just extremely like heartbreaking, but very beautiful. And I just remember on the phone, I like wrote everything down as she was telling me, because I was like, this is too, like, I want to remember this. This is too special to like not, you know, document or whatever. And so yeah, the song came pretty quickly after that. And weirdly enough, Vish, and this is weird, but I had wanted to write a song called The Window. I like had this kind of melody and like the image and the title for years, like going back to 2018. And so, and I like truly was waiting. I was like, someday this song will make sense. And like, when I heard that story, when my mom told me all of this, I got chills. It almost felt like it's happening. Like the song it's happening. And so I was just so grateful to have the opportunity to, write about that experience in this way and share it with people. And unfortunately, it is a thing that people can kind of relate to, you know, like a lot of people have told me that. And so, I don't know. Yeah, it's something I'm proud of and grateful to have the space to sing and talk about it. So,
well, you should be proud of it. It's among the most beautiful songs on this album. Are there any other themes that you have picked up on recurring in terms of maybe what where songs emanate from, or things you're trying to sort out, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, the main one that kind of comes to mind for me is just like strange grief, like the ways that we grieve the loss of people in our lives, or even like the mundane passing of time, just kind of like what that looks like and how it changes and shifts depending on our moods. And depending on, the things we're grieving and mourning. But, and I don't think that necessarily has to be sad, like I think grief is such a mysterious, like multi-layered emotion or like experience. So whether or not the songs kind of like outwardly talk about that or like gesture to that, that's something that's kind of always on my mind. Not to be morbid, and I don't think it's morbid. I don't know. It's very real. It's very natural.
It is, and I think on the song "Morning Zoo." I think there's something you were just discussing resonated with me from that song, because I feel like that's a song where you're asking, how long does it take? How long does it take to resolve something? What's the line here? How long does it take to find the peace that I want? And how long must I wait to decide that it's over? Well, I don't know. That's life. Like, how long is this? Like,
exactly.
Like, how long will it take to get over something? How long before I feel joy? Or, I'm not saying this about you specifically, but these are things a lot of anticipation in life of like, when is something going to happen, or when is it going to be over? And I feel
like, when can I move on?
Yes, and when can I move on? So I think what you're saying does pop up throughout the record. But sorry, I just focused on that song because when you were talking, it came to mind. No,
that's it.
Yeah,
that's one of my faves. And I'm glad you said that, because those lines to me are like the distilled like question of the record for me, and that's kind of where it all rests, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But,
well, we've touched upon a lot of things in this conversation, and I hope we got to a fair amount of stuff about this record. Is there anything you want to say about it that we didn't get to? Just things that stick out for you that are highlights or anything like that?
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just stoked on how it turned out. Like, recording with Chris Walla was an absolute dream come true. I'm a huge fan of his work in Death Cab and with a lot of other bands. So it, was completely surreal to not only like be in a room with him, but to like really jive and like become friends and just get to make art together. So it was awesome. And yeah, man, I'm so excited to finally share it, because it's been finished for a minute. So we're so thrilled to get to share it, and hopefully it's a fun roller coaster, like you were saying, and not a scary or stressful one. So
it is really fun and enjoyable. And I want to thank you for fielding that last question. I've been asking this type of question the last little while, and it's interesting. Almost everyone is like, "Oh, huh," because it's so open ended. Like, is there anything we haven't covered? And I view it as an opportunity for someone to, wow, he didn't ask me about this, he didn't ask me about that, and almost everyone's like, I don't know how to answer that. But you did a good job, if I might say. And it's making
Thanks.
but it is making me question if that's a good closer. Hey, got anything else?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard. I mean, to be honest, like, there's so much we didn't talk about. Like, it was just such a rich experience making this album, and I feel like I could talk about it forever. Yeah. But people gotta eat. People gotta live their lives. We can't do our 10-hour podcast.
No, people got to drop the names of Sufjan Stevens and Jeff Tweedy. That's what people got to do, apparently. I'm sorry. No, I hope...
I love a good out-of-context story. Truly. No. I'm not lying.
No, I appreciate that, and I only brought them up because you did, and those people and those things resonate with me. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed yourself during this chat, and we got people to be intrigued by this new Ratboys record, The Window. If people do want to follow up and learn more themselves, are there places on the internet or elsewhere where you'd like to direct them?
Yeah, I mean, we're on all the regular social media places, but ratboysband.com is our website, lovingly made by our drummer, Marcus Nuccio. And everything's pretty much there. So have at it.
Nice. And if we can go out on a song from The Window, Julia, I wonder if you can choose one for us and tell us why it came to mind.
Yeah, let's do Morning Zoo. Why not? You mentioned that one, and I think that's one that I'm really proud of. It came a long way from the demo. We've really piled it on, so I'm excited to share that one.
Is it an allusion to like the morning radio zoo cruise?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a fan of those? I'm not myself.
Well, growing up, that was we always listened to like the commercial radio. It was Peter B and Kelly K, and they would always do the zaniest stuff in the morning when you're like half awake and it's like, what is happening? Like you just feel so numb, in the car.
Yeah.
And so, long story short, I'm a big Wikipedia head, and the article of the day one time was the U2 Zoo TV tour. They did a huge tour in the 90s that was kind of
first show I ever went to. Show I ever went to.
So do you remember?
This is ridiculous.
Well, no, this is crucial because this is where I got the idea for the song. So like that's so interesting because I know their walk-up song was that song that's like TV, the poison of the nation, or whatever. It's disposable heroes of hypocrisy who opened the tour date I saw with Primus.
The two opening bands were Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy, Primus, and the Disposable Hero song is Television, Drug of the Nation, Feeding Ignorance and Breeding Radiation. Feeding Ignorance, Breeding Radiation. That's right. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
Dude, no, that is so cool that you were there because the article.
Very young.
If you ever want to take a trip down memory lane, Wikipedia has an extremely detailed article about that entire tour. Like everything about it, all the logistics, all the stage setup, like everything. And so anyway, that article was featured on their front page. So I read it and linked to it in there. There was a link to the article for the morning zoo, like as a concept, like zany early morning radio. And I had never heard that phrase before. And it just it resonated with me so hard about like I said, the mundane passing of time, your like dull routines, contrasted with this like just meaningless like chaos happening in the background. I don't know. It felt so real to me. And so that was where that came from. So
wow, that's weird. So if I
sorry, long-winded, but it's real.
No, it's my fault. So everything's my fault. Let me just say that. If I think on it, I was 14 or 15 years old when I saw that. It was the first big concert I ever went to, and I was a big fan, as I said earlier, from my cousin getting me into that band. And so I remember every aspect of it very vividly, and I know they're disparaged now, but I've never really seen a concert spectacle like that in my life. I think few people have. It was really something else. And yeah, so I appreciate that.
So cool.
And I'm sorry to drop another name, U2, but let's play this song by Ratboys called Morning Zoo from their beautiful new album, The Window. Julia, this was a pleasure. I really enjoyed this. I hope you did too, and I hope we talk again soon, and best of luck in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me on the show. Like I said, I'm a big fan of the pod, and just appreciate you listening to the new music. So thank you.
Kill my thoughts with a knife, then blow say you win if I win it.
Someone seems to be mowing a lawn or blowing leaves or something outside my window here, a summer day in Edmonton. In the winter, often there's snow blowers. It's noisy outside my house. But anyway, maybe you can't even hear it. I can barely hear it now. I think they gave up. I think the person collapsed. Too much mowing. Anyway, thanks again for listening to this episode of Creative Control featuring Julia Steiner of Ratboys. It was lovely to get to encounter Julia for the first time and go on some tangents and detours about our mutual love for various people and talk about this great new record, The Window. And this was all for the 796th episode of Creative Control, which is part of the Entertainment One podcast network and is available wherever you get your podcasts pretty much. If you can't find an episode that you're hunting for and you can't find it, it's nowhere in the feeds or whatever, that's fine. You can still find it. I'll tell you where in just a second. You can also sign up for my monthly newsletter and learn more about me, all at vishkhanna.com. I feel like I scrambled that. Old episodes, learning about me, signing up for the newsletter, all at vishkhanna.com. I'm distracted by the lawnmower, which I can hear again. I'm sorry. You can like Creative Control on various social media things, or follow it, like Facebook and Twitter, and you can follow me on Twitter at vishcreative. Or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at vishkhanna. I'm also on Blue Sky and Threads and all those things. Also, please visit patreon.com/creative control to make a flexible monthly donation to keep this podcast running. $6 American or more a month grants you access to exclusive content. And if you're interested in receiving a Creative Control t-shirt, well, I still have some of those. Just message me on Patreon and I'll get you one while supplies last. Thanks again to the wonderful Alberta record store, Blackbird Music. They have locations in Edmonton and Calgary, Alberta, but you can order records from them using the internet. You can learn more about them at blackbird.ca. I also want to thank Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, Ontario, and Granddad's Donuts in Hamilton, Ontario for their in-kind support for this show. I got to visit all of those places on my recent trip to Ontario, as I mentioned at the top of the show. I got very excited. It was good to see some friends and be back. So thanks again to those places. Another person I saw, Jim Guthrie. Spent some time. My only trip into Toronto, actually, was to see my friend Jim. And he lets me use music of his on the show. And you can learn more about him at jimguthrie.org. And finally, you out there, thank you so much for listening to this episode with Julia from Ratboys. I hope you'll check out their album, The Window, and their other stuff as well. I hope you'll also subscribe to this podcast or follow it and tell your friends about it. Spread the word about Creative Control. That helps. And otherwise, I thank you, and I will talk to you very soon. Goodbye for now.